Keisha's laugh bounced off the tiled kitchen walls of the majestic Grand Hotel as she expertly stacked dirty dishes, her movements a blur of practiced efficiency. Table 6 wants another bottle of Chardonnay. And that quiet gentleman at your corner table is asking for you again. I glanced up from the cart I was loading with fresh linens, my stomach doing that familiar lurch it always did when Dominic Salvatore requested my attention. For 3 months, he had been a fixture here. And for 3 months, I couldn't figure out why a man who radiated such wealth and power chose to spend his Friday nights in the hotel's dimly lit restaurant. He tips well, Keisha continued, nudging me with her elbow. And he's not hard to look at. What's the issue? The issue was that every detail about Dominic Salvatore tripped the alarm bells in my head. Not the kind that screamed immediate danger, but the kind that whispered of a world built on secrets and violence. My degree in criminal psychology, the one I'd put on hold to pay off my mother's medical debts, had trained me to read people, to see the tells most missed. Dominic was a novel written in a language I was still trying to learn. No issue, I lied, smoothing the front of my simple black housekeeping uniform, which I wore even when picking up extra shifts bussing tables. I caught my reflection in the polished surface of a service tray. My dark hair was pulled back into a tight, neat bun, though a few rebellious curls had escaped during the evening rush. At 26, I'd mastered the art of presenting a competent, non-threatening image, essential in an industry where you were meant to be invisible yet helpful. The dining room buzzed with the typical Friday night crowd, couples celebrating, business partners closing deals, and wealthy tourists enjoying the hotel's 5-star reputation. I had become adept at reading the social currents, the unspoken hierarchies and simmering tensions that played out over fine china and crystal glasses. Tonight, however, something felt wrong. I first noticed it around 10:30 when a man in a tailored charcoal suit took a table near the windows. The majestic Grand attracted New York's elite, but this customer was different. He had ordered 3 whiskeys in the last hour without taking a single sip. Instead, he sat with a rigid posture, shoulders tight, checking his watch with the obsessive frequency of someone on a strict timeline. More importantly, his table offered a perfect line of sight to table 12, Dominic's preferred spot. Every few minutes, the man's eyes would drift in that direction, not with open curiosity, but with the trained peripheral awareness of a professional. Then there was the man at the bar, nursing the same expensive scotch for 45 minutes. His Italian leather shoes probably cost more than my monthly rent. He had positioned himself with a clear view of both the main entrance and the service corridor, his body too tense for someone supposedly relaxing. The way he kept adjusting his jacket hinted he was carrying something heavy he didn't want seen. A third man had taken a small table near the restrooms 20 minutes ago, a prime location for monitoring the back exit, the same exit I'd seen Dominic use when leaving. This one was younger, with a nervous energy that manifested in constant motion, checking his phone, rearranging his silverware, drumming a silent rhythm on his thigh. My psychology training screamed at me to recognize the pattern. These 3 men were exhibiting classic pre-action anxiety, elevated breathing, repetitive gestures, hypervigilance. They were signs of people preparing for something significant. Maybe I was being paranoid. My studies had certainly made me see threats where none existed. But the coordination of their positions, the synchronized timing, and their shared focus on table 12 felt like more than a coincidence. Eartha Maya, Keisha's voice broke through my thoughts. Your mysterious tycoon is waiting. I grabbed a fresh water pitcher and approached table 12. Dominic looked up as I neared, his dark, assessing eyes conducting their usual sweep. Everything about him was controlled, from the perfect knot of his silk tie to the deliberate way he held his fork. He was a portrait of carefully contained power, wrapped in a bespoke suit. "Good evening, Mr. Salvatore," I said, proud that my voice held none of the unease churning in my gut. "The usual, please," he replied. That voice, a low baritone with a hint of an accent I couldn't place, made simple requests sound like commands. As I refilled his water, I mentally catalogued the details I'd been collecting for months, how he always sat with his back to a solid wall, how his eyes constantly scanned the room in methodical patterns, the expensive watch on his wrist, and the subtle bulge beneath his left arm that suggested something far more serious than a wallet. You seem distracted tonight, Maya, he observed, his voice low enough for only me to hear. Something on your mind? Before I could reply, movement caught my eye. The man in the charcoal suit pulled out his phone, speaking in hushed tones. I strained to listen as I pretended to wipe a non-existent smudge from the table. 2345, he whispered. Back exit. Everything is in place. My blood ran cold. 2345 was exactly 15 minutes from now. The back exit was Dominic's route. Everything is in place screamed of a coordinated effort. The pieces snapped together with horrifying clarity. 3 men, positioned strategically, all watching Dominic, all operating on the same timeline, all focused on his departure. I glanced at the clock on the wall, 23:30. 15 minutes until what? An ambush? An assassination? My hands trembled. Every instinct told me to mind my own business, to finish my shift and go home to my tiny apartment where my biggest threat was a stack of unpaid bills. But I couldn't shake the image of Dominic walking unknowingly into a trap. What if I was wrong? What if my overactive mind was inventing a conspiracy? But what if I wasn't? Mr. Salvatore, I said quietly, leaning in as if to adjust his silverware. I might be completely wrong, but I think you should stay quiet and not move. Something is planned for 23:45. His hand stilled on his glass, those dark eyes sharpening with sudden, intense focus. For a moment, the restaurant's noise faded into a dull hum around our bubble of shared tension. Explain, he said, his voice a near-silent command. 3 men. The table by the window, the bar, and near the restrooms. They've been watching you all night. Coordinated positioning, synchronized movements, pre-action anxiety behaviors, the words tumbled out, a mix of professional jargon and raw fear. I overheard a call. 23:45. The back exit. His expression remained unreadable, but a subtle shift in his posture, a coiling of muscles, transformed him from an elegant diner into something far more predatory. You're certain? I wasn't certain of anything except the frantic beat of my heart. No. But yes. Maybe. I study this. Behavioral analysis. Everything about them screams surveillance and intent. He slowly reached into his jacket and withdrew his phone. A few quick taps, and he set it face down on the table. Done. What's done? A ghost of a smile touched his lips, sharp and dangerous. Insurance. What happened next was a blur of calculated violence. Dominic's phone buzzed once. Within seconds, 3 men in dark suits materialized from different corners of the restaurant, men I hadn't even registered as being present. The man in the charcoal suit never saw it coming. One moment he was checking his watch, the next, his face was being introduced to his steak dinner, his arm twisted behind his back at an unnatural angle. The man at the bar tried to run. He made it 3 steps before being enveloped by a wall of tailored wool and disappearing from view. The 3rd man near the restrooms bolted for the back exit. I heard a muffled scuffle and a heavy thud that suggested his escape had failed. Through it all, Dominic remained seated, calmly sipping his water as if orchestrating a tactical takedown was a routine part of his evening. We need to leave, he said quietly, standing and placing a crisp $100 bill on the table. Now. I can't just leave. My shift isn't over. Your shift is over. His hand found the small of my back, guiding me toward the main entrance with gentle but absolute authority. Trust me, you don't want to be here when the police arrive. My legs felt disconnected from my brain. As we walked through the dining room, Keisha gave me a bewildered look. I wanted to explain, but Dominic's pace was relentless. Outside, a black sedan idled at the curb. Get in, he said, opening the rear door. Every rational thought screamed at me to run. This was how people disappeared. But what choice did I have? I'd just seen what happened to people who crossed Dominic Salvatore. The car's interior smelled of leather and expensive cologne. Dominic slid in beside me, the driver, a mountain of a man, pulling away without a word. Where are you taking me? I asked, my voice shaking only slightly. Somewhere safe, he replied, his dark eyes studying me. You saved my life tonight, Maya. That tends to complicate things. We drove in tense silence. The safe house was a penthouse apartment in a glittering skyscraper overlooking Central Park. More armed men waited in the lobby, turning the opulent space into a fortress. This is temporary, Dominic said as we rode a private elevator. Until we understand the scope of tonight's events. The apartment was breathtaking, but it was a secure space, not a home. No personal touches, multiple visible exits, and the two men who followed us up stood guard with unnerving stillness. I need to call my job, I said, fumbling for my phone. Already handled, a woman appeared from a hallway. She was in her mid-30s, elegant and efficient. I spoke with your supervisor. You've come down with a severe migraine and won't be in for a few days. I stared at her. Who are you? Isabella Romano, Mr. Salvatore's assistant, she said, extending a hand. I've prepared the guest room. There are clothes in your size in the closet. How do you know my size? That same calculating look I'd seen on Dominic. We are very thorough in our research, Miss Washington. The casual mention of research sent a fresh wave of fear through me. How much did they know? Dominic had disappeared into an office. Isabella led me down a hall to a guest room larger than my entire apartment. How did you know I'd be coming here? I asked. Isabella paused at the door. Mr. Salvatore is a man who plans for contingencies. He's been aware of you for some time, Miss Washington. She left me alone with 1,000 multiplying questions. I didn't sleep. By dawn, Sophia reappeared with coffee. Mr. Salvatore would like to speak with you when you're ready, she said. I found him in the office, surrounded by monitors displaying security feeds from across the city. He'd changed into dark jeans and a simple white shirt, looking younger and somehow more dangerous. Sleep well, he asked without turning. Did you expect me to? He swiveled to face me. How much do you know about organized crime in New York, Maya? The use of my first name was disarming. Only that it exists. And that normal people stay as far away from it as possible. A smart policy, he said. Unfortunately, no longer an option for you. Because I saved your life. Because you witnessed Julian Gallo attempting to have me killed. And because your intervention allowed my men to capture 2 of his people alive. Gallo will assume you work for me now. That makes you a target. The casual way he delivered this death sentence made my knees weak. For how long? Until Gallo is no longer a problem. He handed me a cup of coffee, his fingers brushing mine. And how long will that take? That depends on how smart he is, Dominic said, his gaze intense. And how quickly he realizes that his war with my family was always going to end only one way: family. The word hung in the air, heavy with a meaning I was only beginning to comprehend. Saturday morning brought the harsh reality that my life had fundamentally changed. Panic seized me before I was fully conscious. My chest constricted, the elegant walls of the bedroom closing in, transforming from sanctuary to prison. I was a statistic in the making, a missing person whose case would gather dust. I forced myself to breathe slowly, using the techniques a counselor had taught me after my mother died, back when my panic was about medical bills, not mob wars. Isabella brought breakfast. Mr. Salvatore had to leave early this morning, she said. Business matters are a euphemism that could mean anything from board meetings to executions. When can I go home? Isabella's composure cracked for a fraction of a second. That depends on several factors outside our control. You mean it depends on whether Julian Gallo decides to kill me? Mr. Salvatore won't let that happen, she said with a certainty that was somehow not comforting. My survival now depended entirely on a man I barely knew. I spent the day pacing the penthouse like a caged animal. By afternoon, I decided to test the boundaries of my captivity. I need some air, I told Isabella. I'm afraid that's not possible. The lobby, then? Just to not feel completely trapped. Miss Washington, I understand this is difficult, but... No, you don't understand. The words exploded out of me. You don't understand what it's like to have your life destroyed because you did the right thing. To be told you're a murder target. To be imprisoned in a golden cage by the very person you saved. Isabella absorbed my outburst without flinching. You're right. But I do understand being caught between impossible choices and dangerous people. Her eyes held shadows of experiences she would never share. Sunday, I tried to escape. I waited until Isabella left for her weekly errands and took the elevator down. I made it 3 floors before it stopped between levels. When the doors opened, one of Dominic's men was waiting. Miss Washington, he said politely. Mr. Salvatore asked me to escort you back upstairs. The shame burned hotter than the fear. Dominic returned that evening. I hear you had an eventful day, he said, pouring a whiskey. Heat flooded my cheeks. I needed air. And you thought wandering New York alone while Julian Gallo has a price on your head was a good idea. I thought I could go back to my normal life and pretend this never happened. He turned to face me. Your normal life ended Friday night when you chose to warn me. So I'm being punished for doing the right thing. You're being protected because doing the right thing put you in danger. The logic was sound, but my heart screamed at the injustice. Tell me about your mother, Dominic said, catching me off guard. What about her? Isabella mentioned she passed away recently. The medical bills forced you to take the hotel job. Grief washed over me. Lung cancer. 3 years of treatments that bankrupted us. That's why you studied criminal psychology, he stated, not asked. You wanted to understand the people who prey on the vulnerable. He was right, though I'd never articulated it that way. Something softened in his expression. My mother died when I was 15, he said, his voice quiet. Poisoned by someone we trusted. Someone my father considered family. My father's cousin. He'd been selling information to rival families for years. His knuckles were white where he gripped his glass. It taught me to never trust anyone completely. And to recognize betrayal before it becomes fatal. Understanding dawned. That's why you need someone who can read people. Someone who can spot the tells. Your intervention Friday night wasn't just good instinct, he admitted. You saw patterns that trained killers tried to hide. That's not a skill you learn bussing tables. You don't trust anyone, do you? Trust is a luxury I can't afford. That night, sleep was impossible. I found Dominic in the kitchen at 3 a.m., standing by the island with 2 cups of espresso. Couldn't sleep either, he asked. He handed me a cup. It's an old family recipe. My mother used to make it for me when I had nightmares. The gesture was unexpectedly intimate. This wasn't the crime boss, this was a man sharing a piece of his past. We stood in comfortable silence, sipping the strong, sweet coffee. The men who killed her, I asked quietly. What happened to them? My father handled it when I turned 18, he said. All of them. And the cousin? His smile in the darkness was as sharp as broken glass. That one was mine. The next day, I was making coffee when Isabella appeared with the morning security briefings. Something in her expression made my blood run cold. She set a folder on the counter. Inside were crime scene photos. A young man, his face familiar, lay dead in a small apartment. Who is this? I asked, my voice a whisper. David Gallo, age 24. He worked in the kitchen at the Majestic Grand. A distant cousin of Julian's. David. The quiet kid from the kitchen who always had a smile, who'd always asked about my studies. He was eliminated 2 days ago on Mr. Salvatore's orders, Isabella said calmly. The folder slipped from my numb fingers. What? Why? He was selling information about you, Miss Washington. Your schedule, your routes home, details about your sister's college in Detroit. The information he sold was specifically about you. The kitchen walls seemed to close in. David was dead because Dominic had decided his potential threat outweighed his right to live. I ran to the study, where Dominic was on the phone. He hung up when he saw my face. "Maya, what's wrong?" "David Gallo," I choked out. A careful blankness settled over his features. "You saw the report. You killed him. I eliminated a threat to your safety. He was a kid. He was just trying to make some extra money. He was selling information that would have led to your death," Dominic said, his voice devoid of emotion. "His motivations are irrelevant. He didn't know. You could have found another way. Talked to him, paid him off, anything but murder. This isn't a negotiation, Maya. In my world, threats are eliminated. There are no second chances. There is survival, and there is death." The cold finality of his words chilled me to the bone. This was the man I'd been falling for, someone who ordered executions as easily as he ordered wine. "I can't do this," I whispered. "Can't do what?" "Be with someone who kills people, people who endanger you." His expression hardened, the mask of the crime boss slamming back into place. "Then you're more naive than I thought." The words were a slap in the face. This was who he really was. The rest was just a form of control. "I'm leaving." "No, you're not. You can't keep me here against my will. I can't let you get yourself killed because you're too idealistic to understand reality. Then I guess we have a problem." I turned and walked out. The guards in the lobby didn't stop me. By evening, I was on a bus to Detroit, watching New York disappear behind me. My sister, Simone, lived in a small apartment near her university, as far from Dominic's world as I could imagine. But even as I settled into her spare room, I couldn't shake the feeling that leaving had only made me more vulnerable, not safer. 2 days later, I would discover just how right I was. On Tuesday morning, as I was making coffee, Simone's phone rang. She answered, her expression shifting from annoyance to confusion to stark terror. The phone slipped from her hand. "Jess, what's wrong?" They know you're here," she stammered. The voice was accented. "They knew your name, knew about Mom's bills, even my thesis project. They said if you didn't go with them, they'd take me instead." Ice filled my veins. Dominic was right. Leaving hadn't made me safe, it had endangered Simone. "Pack a bag," I ordered, my mind racing. "Right now." Before she could move, the apartment door exploded inward. 3 men in tactical gear stormed in. "Simone Washington," the leader said in heavily accented English. "You come with us." "No." I stepped in front of my sister. "Take me. I'm the one you want." He smiled, revealing gold-capped teeth. "We want you to watch." To understand the consequences of running her before I could react, another man had Simone, a cloth pressed over her mouth. She went limp in seconds. 48 hours, Gold-Tooth said to me. "You go back to New York. You tell Salvatore we have his woman's sister. He brings what we want, or she disappears." They were gone, leaving me in the wreckage. I called Dominic, my hand shaking. He answered on the first ring. "Maya." "They have Simone," I choked out. His voice went cold and precise. "Where are you?" "Detroit." They said 48 hours. They want territory. I'm already in the car. Send me the address. We will get her back. He arrived 6 hours later with a team that turned Simone's quiet street into a military staging ground. He found me on the couch, staring at the spot where my sister was taken. "Tell me everything," he said. I recounted the morning's events with clinical detail, my psychology training kicking in. "Sinaloa," he said when I finished. "Gallo has new allies. Can you get her back?" Something flickered in his eyes. "I have never lost someone I was protecting." "I won't start with your sister." Over the next 12 hours, Dominic's team located the cartel's base in an abandoned warehouse. 8 men, automatic weapons, and orders to kill Simone if a rescue was attempted. "They're expecting overwhelming force," Dominic said, studying satellite images. So we give them the opposite. Precision. Psychologies, he turned to me. I need your expertise to predict how they'll react under stress. Cartel soldiers aren't like my men. They operate on different principles. I was being pulled into the planning of a military operation. But Simone's life was at stake. Cartel soldiers are motivated by fear, not loyalty, I explained to his team. Fear of their superiors, of rivals. It makes them unpredictable, but exploitable. Create multiple, simultaneous threats. Make them think they're being attacked from different directions by different groups. Their command structure will fracture. They won't kill her immediately, she's too valuable. But if they think the rescue is failing, they'll execute her to deny you the victory. So we ensure they never reach that conclusion, Dominic finished. Or we make them believe that cooperation is their only chance of survival. He paused, his expression serious. Maya, there's something else. About David Gallo. He wasn't just selling your schedule. He gave them detailed intelligence on Simone. Her address, her classes, her routines. They were planning to take her weeks ago. The revelation hit me like a punch. David hadn't just endangered me, he had painted a target on my sister. My moral outrage from a few days ago felt like a naive luxury. I understand now, I said quietly. In your world, hesitation gets everyone you care about killed. What do you need me to do? I asked, my voice steady. His smile was sharp and dangerous. Help me get your sister back. Then, help me end Julian Gallo for good.